artists behind the epic melodies, songs, and beats. Celebrating the best new music from around the world. This is the A State of Trance podcast.
Hey, what's up? My name is Ruben Ronde in the studio together with Nina. How are you doing? And of course, the guest of today, BK, Ben Keen. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
I have to be honest, I haven't been this excited for a podcast in a long time because I know with guys that have been around for such a long time, there has to be some juicy stories in there.
There's some, not all of them I can tell you about.
Yes, you can. No one's listening. Yeah?
Yeah, well,
There we go. I always like to dive deep into, the history of you as a dance producer and DJ. And we also have some questions that were submitted by fans through social medias.
Okay, yeah.
But we're going to start at the start. How did you fall in love with dance music and you decided to become a producer or a DJ?
So I went to school in an area called East London and Essex, which is actually where the Prodigy are from, and all those bands and all that early music, dance music, all kind of happened to just, a lot of it came from this area. Labels like Suburban Bass Records, I don't know if you remember those. And it was massive, the rave scene while I was at school. So at that time, it was all illegal warehouse parties.
So we were going to school and these parties started to emerge everywhere. And
they were emerging everywhere, yeah. And a friend of mine who was a year above me decided he was going to start organising these parties.
Okay.
While still at school. So he started to organise parties. And actually one of his first lineups now, if you look back at this lineup, and this was done by an 18-year-old kid, was Carl Cox, The Prodigy, and at the time Shades of Rhythm. Can you imagine how much that lineup was?
Holy damn.
A student could not afford that.
You just couldn't. You couldn't do it. And his very first party, it was in a warehouse in East London called Wonderland Arena. It was called, and it was an old warehouse behind an ice skating rink. Mm-hmm. And there was a massive rave up the road for 8,000 people on the same night. That rave got closed down. So everybody walked to his first party that he'd ever done. And consequently, they had 5,000-6,000 people in the first party of an 18-year-old. And it went on for a few more parties. And of course, we were all going from school, going to these parties at the weekends and raving. And that continued. And that's when I fell in love with dance music.
So he booked a young Carl Cox back then. You were on the dance floor.
I saw Prodigy do Charlie Says and all their early ones live in a little van. And funny enough, I ended up doing a residency in Ibiza with Leroy from the Prodigy a few years later, and we were just chatting. And there was one occasion where someone had hooked up a sound system outside the venue, and he said, he went to tell me the story, and I managed to finish off the story before he'd tell me it because I was one of the people doing this.
Yeah.
He said everyone was shaking our van and banging on the music, and the whole van was all tipped over. And I was like, yeah, I was one of the people shaking the van.
You're like, thank you.
Yeah. So that was just from that whole area. It was just a kind of a unique time and a unique place.
I would love to go back in time, and this feels like a Peaky Blinders going back in time or something like that. That you would walk around that area and people with long hair and listening to the Prodigy and
long hair Prodigy, loads of record shops like about the real flyer culture back in the days of advertising. Leaving flyers in record shops. That's what we do.
Illegal parties everywhere.
Illegal parties, illegal radio stations. The original one was Centreforce, which is now a legal radio station in the UK and doing really well for that kind of rave vibe.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. But yeah, they used to announce where the party's going to be. People would meet up at a petrol station or a gas station somewhere, and then you'd have to follow someone else to a warehouse.
You would be in a warehouse with a couple of big speakers.
A wall of big speakers.
Yeah, just a lot of speakers, no lights.
No health and safety.
No toilets, no decent bar. Nothing. I would love to experience it now. Everything is so polished nowadays. You go to a festival, you have your rider standing by, or you go to a festival, everything's just taken care of so well. And over there, it was just, you would go there and I don't know what's going to happen. What time is it closed? I don't know.
They would always advertise what sound system would be there. So that was another thing, as well as the DJs, they'd have the make of sound system that was there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's, 90K sub bass thingy rig with whatever it was. And there would literally be a whole, this is how unhealth and safety it was. I remember once lighting a cigarette off the laser.
All right.
Being on the stage and being able to light a cigarette with a laser.
Well, you didn't need to worry about cameras getting fried yet. So
there was none of that below the eyes stuff. It was terrible. Yeah.
This was this 94, 93?
This would have been 92, 93. Yeah, around that time. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then
I was like a teen. I was still at school.
Yeah,
I was just getting born at that moment.
Yeah, well, there you go. So you went to these raves, to these parties that your friend was organizing, but at a certain point you were like, "Hey, I want to start DJing or creating my music as well."
I was actually everyone used to be like, "Wow, that's an amazing DJ. That's an amazing DJ." Me included. You know, when you saw DJs play, but I always had this thing in the back of my head. Well, how did it get on the vinyl in the first place?
Yeah. What are those magical black discs?
He's playing something else that someone else made. So how did that get on there? And that started to ask all those questions for me. And that's what triggered it off to me wanting to actually make the music.
Yeah. So how did it start out? Because those, like back in the days, even 10 years ago, it would be a massive difference that it is for now. Well, let's talk about 30 years of difference.
I worked in a record shop after I left school. I was advised to leave school, actually. And rather than stay on and do my exams, they said, you're not here. I wasn't there a lot because I was out in raves, in fields and warehouses. So I went to work in a record shop for a few months. And at the same time, I was writing off to different recording studios to try and get a job. Mm-hmm. And I eventually managed to blag my way into a job in a studio, which is in Carnaby Street in London in the West End. And they did music for films and TV commercials.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned how to... First of all, I used to have to make pints of Jack Daniels for all the artists that used to come in and stuff like that as well, as the T-boy and the tape op back in those days. So you'd work with a sound engineer and they'd say, right, you had multi-track tape. Yeah. You'd say, can you swap the tape over? Can you do that? And that's how I learned. And then you'd learn how to plug things in on a patch bay. And then I eventually became an assistant engineer there.
Yeah.
Then I started to do some writing for some of the TV commercial stuff and wrote some of the music for some of the TV ads and stuff.
But before you applied for jobs at those studios, did you already make music? Or was it something like, hey, I might be good at this?
I wanted to do it. I'd done a quick course in learning MIDI at the time and stuff like that. I blagged my way into this job. And I would say I was a runner, I was a T-boy, and I was a tape op. And those days you learn on the job. So I was in there to become and learn on the job.
So you were a fly on the wall, just looking at what the producers were doing.
Yeah, or they were teaching me. They were literally teaching me, ready to do engineering and sessions by myself.
But you say already the studio was there for commercials, for film music,
for films, commercials. But they also made, they also had they had used other artists who would come in and use a studio at the same time, but primarily for films and TV, which actually was the best training I think I could have had, because at the time an advertising company would come to them and say, "Oh, we want this Michael Jackson track.
We have some new peanut butter. We need a commercial for that.
We wanted to use this Michael Jackson track or whatever it was, but we can't afford it with the record company. So can you used to be able to do sound alikes in those days? Can you do something that sounds really similar?" So by doing those, it teaches you what drum machines were used on certain genres, where those sounds came from.
You're analyzing songs and
going, that's a 606 snare, that's a 808 clap, that's a thing. And you just learn all this information because you're having to recreate stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the time we'll do something in the same vein. And that just becomes priceless, because then when I started to make dance music, I could literally listen and go, it's the 909 kick, that's that, this, that's that. And it was just the best training I could have had, really.
So you came in the studio in a commercial studio, and you come in as a rave kid.
I came in as a rave kid, and
you left as a proper musician, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, one of my bosses there was a clubber, heavy clubber, and he said, "Why don't you come to some of these clubs with us?" And he took me to a club called Heaven and a club called Trade, where Tony DeVee was playing.
I hear a lot about that club.
Yeah, it was a great club back in the day. Mrs. Woods was a DJ there, and all the old React stuff. Do you remember the React kind of hard trance music? So Age of Love and stuff like that. That's the era.
Yeah.
Dreams, Quench.
Yeah.
All of that kind of era. That was all that kind of music there. And he would take me to these clubs, and that's where I saw Tony DeVee play. That's where I started to get into the harder music. And eventually, I used to have a key to the studio. And what used to happen is when everyone used to go home after work, we'd go clubbing, and then I'd let myself back into the studio and start use all the gear to make equipment.
So you were sitting there day and night?
Yeah. While no one knew I was in there, I'd start using all the equipment because it was expensive back in those days.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Even now, I guess all the equipment was over there. It costs tons right now.
Yeah, the old Akai samplers would cost, £3,000 or £4,000 25 years ago. So it's probably the equivalent of £8,000 or £9,000 now.
Yeah, I think the 909s go for 6.5.
Yeah,
at least.
So those old samplers were a lot of money, but actually, I have a doorbell at home that's got more sampling capacity. It plays more tunes, and you can put your own music on it, which is bigger than the samplers were there. So that would cost me
£9.99. You already mentioned this off air before you started BK. This is probably what you produced in that studio. You were making hardcore.
Right. Yeah, we did few hardcore things. I think it was under the name Tech 2.
Tech 2.
That was actually me and the boss who taught me how to make music. Who showed me all the clubs. We used to start making things. We got a few things signed back in the day, and that was my first. I think it was on MCA was the label back then, and I was like 18. I think then I was 17, 18 when I had my first release doing that sort of stuff, and then went on to start doing more of my own stuff.
So when did you decide to start the alias BK? Because you were making hardcore, you were getting signed, so it was already successful, I guess.
When I eventually came to leave that job because I wanted to pursue doing more dance music, I started to work as an engineer for a label called Media Records.
Okay, yeah.
Which was a big Italian label.
BXR Nucleus.
BXR, then became Nucleus.
Yeah.
And I was the engineer there. And while I was engineering, they were releasing all sorts of stuff on UMM, which was kind of housey, funky sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was doing a label on the side called Friction Burns. And I was selling more than they were selling.
You're like, hey, what's going on here?
And they were like, oh, what's this going on? And then Nucleus was born.
Yeah. Okay.
And then started to release stuff through them under the Nucleus imprint.
And before all of that started, you also had because this is before the Nucleus times.
Yeah.
2 years before. This was the first release I found. And there has to be a good story with this because I'm a burger boy. I love burgers. You released an EP called 3 tracks, Double Whopper, Quarter Pounder, and Quarter Pounder with Cheese.
Yeah.
What's the story behind those?
There was I had a lot of pseudonyms back in the day as well. And there was a lot of sense of humor with making the music.
Yeah. It was less serious than it is. Well, the humor is coming back a little bit now.
It was less serious. There was a bit of humor in there. There was a bit of fun. And this sort of music was that type of sort of hard house was very bouncy, very fun, quite camp. It was quite, fun and stuff. It just had a stupid name because everyone used to call me BK. So I just ran with it. Yeah.
So you were a Burger King, Double Whopper.
Well, it was initially, I wrote my initials on a DAT.
Yeah.
And for a release.
Oh, that's how it started, BK.
That's how it started because all the DATs used to just have BK written because it's my whole name because you only had that tiny little bit of space to write the release name and the whole thing on.
All right, fair enough. You already mentioned it, Nucleus. You started out with making some songs with Fergie as well in 2001.
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff with Fergie. So when
Movies and Horns in 1999.
Yeah, so one of my things that I used to do at Nucleus was because the people at the label they had no real connection to. I was their connection to hard house, if that made sense.
Yeah. So media teamed up with you to start Nucleus.
So they started Nucleus and they said, right, come and release the stuff that you're selling more of, but do it for us.
So they were like, okay, he's doing way too good, so we have to get him on.
They had more of a machine behind it.
Yeah.
So, but because I was on the scene, I knew who all the other artists were on the scene. So I'd start getting them in for doing collabs and working with just to produce more content, really.
Yeah. And then from 2001, that label went on for, I don't know, for many years. And in 2002, of course, Revolution came about.
The Revolution, which is a bit of I called it the backlash track.
Yeah. Why did you call it like that?
Well, just to myself, because like everyone, I'd been making this hard house stuff, which musically is quite monotone. You know,
it's like the donk bass, and
it's a simple offbeat bass. It's a hard riff with sampling and stuff like that, and it wasn't particularly musical. When I first started making that, people were making a lot of trance stuff.
Yeah.
So it stuck out.
Yeah.
And then everyone started to make it, and everyone started to do copying, and it was like, well, this is getting boring. So why don't I do what I did before? Now everyone's making the monotone hard house. I'll make something with a bit of music in, but can still be played in a hard house set.
Yeah.
And my thinking was, I wanted the trance DJs to be able to play it as well.
Yeah. Mission succeeded.
Yeah.
Because this is the same time as Ferry was releasing, let's say, Gorialla. And Armin was doing Communication. And then you were doing Revolution.
Stuff like, because I found myself DJing, doing a lot of internationals.
Yeah.
But I would be I'd be the hard house DJ on a non-hard house lineup. So I'd go to Canada and they'd be played like maybe Come On After Ferry or Armin at a party, and I'd be the last DJ of the night kind of thing. So I just thought to myself, well, why can't I make a record that's their last record in that would be their last record in their set?
Yeah.
You know, or towards the end back in those, something a bit harder and a bit tougher, but still work for them.
So it's a bit of a risk also, I guess, that you took a small exit away from the hard style scene into the, you could have fallen into the gap that you created yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, but I didn't think about it at the time. I wanted a musical record for my own sets.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'm missing something here. I need that euphoric moment. It's already good to go hard and fast and all of that, but you need that euphoric moment as well to get some emotion going and stuff. You know?
Did you expect that it would blow up like that?
No, never.
No, and did you imagine that 25 years almost later that a new generation of kids is playing
it's
that
great.
as well?
The amount of times I'm tagged in it at least 15, 20 times a day, being played at massive festivals by some DJs that I've never heard of who've got 3 million, 4 million followers. And it's
like, hey, who is this?
Who's this? But it's great and it's exciting and that's what more could you want? That's why you make music, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll get back to that in just a little bit. I want to continue the timeline of BK a little bit more because in 2004 you started Riot Recordings with Ed Real.
Yeah.
Tell us about why did you step away from Nucleus and start doing that?
It was
no one's listening. You can you can throw some shade. I don't care.
Old school record companies things, you know, like they were different back in the days with how they might have looked after their artists, shall we say?
Yeah. It was time to move on.
It was time to move on, and we had there was a party. We did a weekly party at a club called The End in London, which was Mr. C. Do you remember Mr. C from The Shaman and Leo and Bushwhacker?
Yeah.
So they owned a club in central London. I think it was all those guys, and we started a party on a Sunday, and it used to start at 12 in the afternoon and go until 10 at night on a Sunday.
Beautiful,
great. Apart from those days, you'd come straight from another club.
It would be the after party.
They still do that. They just still do that.
And that was, I think it won Mixed Mag's Club of the Year 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So it became a place where DJs would ring up and say, "Can we come and play for you?" Even if they weren't hard house DJs.
Yeah.
So we'd had Leroy from The Prodigy, we'd had John 00 Fleming, Billy Nasty, all these other people would want to come and play because it was just like a very hedonistic Sunday afternoon. It wasn't so much as an after party as a crack on.
It was not only zombies.
Yeah. And that you'd sell out every single week and you'd have a queue of an hour all the way around, you know, down the block, and you'd have even the staff they'd all want to come and work on that day, you know, and they'd be dancing on the bars and stuff like that. And you then started to get a lot of industry people come down after they'd finished gigging or finished their jobs. They'd stop in, you know, just like it's the last stop of the weekend to come. So it was a real good sort of melting pot of people. And you know, I remember at the time the editor of DJ Mag turning up and going, I'm not sure about this hard house stuff or whatever. And then you'd see 2 hours later they'd have their shirt off and they'd be standing on a podium absolutely going
In the
nuts.
meantime, they still wouldn't cover anything of hardstyle in their magazine.
but it would be, you know, it was like everyone's guilty pleasure almost.
Yeah.
It was, so yeah, that was called Riot. And then the label came from that.
What happened to Riot? Because it sounds like a magical place on earth.
The venue became flats.
Again,
apartments.
That's the London story of things.
The London story all the way around. It's in central West End London, right near, around the corner from Oxford Street Station.
Yeah,
it's prime location.
It's unbelievable. It's the same story with every single club that's closed down in London. It's always, they built apartments on top.
What seems to happen is the clubs will go into an area, and that area, because the club is there, it attracts people to the area. It gets they call it gentrified, don't they? So because the club is there, it's people. Someone goes, you know what? There's loads of people come to the area. I'll just open a little bar here, and then that bar does really well because it's getting all the people going in and out of the club, pre-club. Someone else goes, I'll just open a little bar. Before you know it, you've got coffee shops, bars,
house prices
restaurants,
go up.
House prices go up. And the only people that can't stay there is the club that brought all the people there in the first place.
I never thought about that. That's actually true.
That's exactly what happens. It happens all over London. I mean, for a benefit from London is it's making London nicer in some of the places that weren't so nice.
There's some rough areas. But I guess it was the same, for example, I could be wrong, with Camden and Turnmills, for example.
Yeah. Turnmills.
Such a shame.
Turnmills is where I was resident with Fergie back in the day at Trade, which was an absolute unique place because it's in an area of London which is called Smithfields, which is where the meat markets are.
Yeah.
So people who work at meat markets, they start work at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So that area had different licensing laws from the rest of the country. So to allow those people to have a drink in a pub, you could start serving alcohol at 4 o'clock in the morning. So where everywhere else in the UK had licensing laws and could shut, Turnmills was in this area that meant they could serve alcohol up till 2 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. Then they have to shut like the rest of the country.
Yeah.
But then at 4 p.m. they could start serving again. At 4 a.m., sorry. 2 a.m.
Yeah.
4 a.m. they could start serving again. So it was so trade used to open at 4 o'clock in the morning,
just because of the alcohol license.
And it was I think it's the world's first sort of after hours party 30 years ago.
I love Turnmills. It was
great.
My first ever UK show was in Turnmills
for the gallery.
Yeah, the third area was Vaccine by Tom Viceroy back in the days. Unbelievable.
Such a good. I've played all over the world, all clubs all over the world, but still the favourite gigs I've ever played have been Trade and Turnmills. Just the atmosphere and the vibe of it in there was incredible.
Yeah, magical times.
Yeah.
So Riot Recording started 2004, and then in 2007, Scott Attrill's Traffic Records was emerged into Riot as well.
That's right. Yeah.
And you're still doing things until now.
Bits and bobs. So I had a little. Not walk away from the hard stuff, but I was doing other stuff. I was working for a label called Toolroom, releasing under the name Tough London, which we had some success with, and all stuff like that. And I never stopped doing the hard stuff. I've always carried on doing stuff. It's my passion, but a little step away from it. It's so much. Not that it wasn't my priority. It was just I was just opening my mind with other music and other productions, and actually all the stuff I learned on how to make the Toolroom stuff, I've brought back and put into the BK stuff, if that makes sense. So you can,
but because if you see your release schedule on several sites, then let's say from 2001 to 2010, you were like smashing releases, like unbelievable. And then the gap comes in a certain point.
Yeah.
That's the moment that you were focusing on Tough London. And
doing Tough London, doing other stuff. I was doing a lot of engineering and producing for people, all that kind of stuff. Just doing more of the DJing. You have to take a break sometimes to be able to sort of come back to it.
And now, question: I don't know if you can answer this because maybe you signed some NDAs or whatever. What is the most famous track you've ever engineered that wasn't on your own name that you can share information about? Because sometimes it's a bit sensitive.
Yeah, I can't. Some of the other ones I'm not allowed. You
some big ones.
Yeah, there's some all right ones that you'd probably know about.
But switch off the microphone. No.
Actually, all the old Nucleus stuff. So all the stuff that was released on Nucleus might have come out as artists. So obviously I had pseudonyms like Cortina for The Music Is Moving and stuff like that. All those pseudonyms, but also artists like Andy Farley and Fergie and Lisa Pinup, all those artists that were released, I removed my name from those records.
Because you co-produced them?
I wrote them and co-produced them, but I ended up removing my name, because I had so much stuff coming out,
Yeah.
And B, it was a little bit of a business decision back in those days because they used to have massive compilations. So
they would only pick like 2 or 3 BK tracks.
But actually, if you look at those compilations, I probably had 14 or 15 things.
Oh, wow.
Those compilations. Either a pseudonym or a co-write with someone else.
That's smart.
Yeah, so, and those compilations in those days were, for 500,000 selling units of CDs, so that was
good times.
Good times.
Unfortunately, Spotify doesn't pay the same amount of money anymore. All right, so 2015, you moved on to Slam Recordings, a new label as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about how did you come up with that? Well, Slam, first of all.
Again, just looking for a bit of an outlet to do some more and different stuff. I was working with Sam Townend a lot at Tidy.
Yeah.
And we were Sam Townend is also my partner in Tough London, you see.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So what I noticed, we were doing some sort of Tough London stuff and other housey stuff. And we were like, you know what, this would work as a harder record as well. So that's it. And it was more done just for a bit of fun, really, if I'm honest.
Stepping away from the serious house music or
just to keep, and also to keep your finger in the pie. It is your passion, it's your love. And I was still DJing out in the underground scene a lot as BK, and I wanted some new music to play.
You're tired of the classics. I need some new stuff.
So I wanted some new music to play. So that was kind of that, and also, just it was just something to do, really, if I'm honest. Just add more to the machine and the catalogue, as it were.
So you must be a very fast producer. Like you finish stuff really fast.
Well, we talked about this off air, didn't we? When you originally started, you didn't have any recall. So if you were in a studio with a big 48 track mixing desk, the next person in there was going to completely take away all everything the work you've done.
Yeah.
They were just going to wipe it down and take away, and even used to have to sometimes take a photo of the mixing desk to go, right, God, it's not quite finished. If I need to come back, we can try and look at the photo and work out at least some of the levels.
I was talking with Nick Chagall from Cosmic Gate, and he told me they had like a cardboard box that they cut out certain parts, and then they would redial the synthesizer, and they would just make some notes on where the filters were and stuff like that.
Or bits of masking tape.
Yeah.
So you'd have bits of masking.
So where's the release? Where's the decay? And
so you could just stuck all around the place, like hanging up and going, that's a track, and you could stick it back on the desk, and on the desk it would have all the names like bass drum, snare, but you'd also write the level, at what level it was. And
nowadays you can just open a project with 200 different
it's just
snapshots everywhere. Yeah. What do you prefer?
There was something really, really organic about doing the mix with the big mixing desks, because often you'd find the best combinations of sounds and the best to get a best groove. You do by muting things on and off.
Yeah.
And you could literally leave the track looping and just mute in the kick drum, mute in the hat, and go, oh, actually that works really well. It's just the kick and the bass and the hi-hat. All of a sudden you've done by mistake, probably.
Yeah.
And you think, well, actually that sounds great. And then you kind of reprogram it afterwards.
Which doesn't really happen if you work in a DAW.
No, it's all there. It's all there for you. Yeah. But positives, and I mean, the sound,
I guess, of course.
The sound was great with those mixing discs as well.
Okay,
it was a bit more organic.
2017, you moved on to Tidy. Step away from Slam also a little bit. But Tidy, Slam was a relationship between those two.
Yeah, the relationship there.
And then a sort of a gap came with new music, right?
Yeah. So. Again, I was doing a lot of the Tough London stuff that around that period. Yeah. We'd had quite a few tracks that had kind of hit off, and it was really concentrating on doing all that stuff, and that was going really well. And then lockdown came.
Yeah, because that's quite a pivotal moment in your very long career already.
Yeah,
because you told this all off air already. How you think the thing came about again, that suddenly everybody started playing your music again.
Yeah, so I think in the UK there was a lot of illegal parties going on in lockdown.
Yeah, because all the clubs are closed, people were sitting at home. Yeah,
and the type of people that put on illegal parties are the type of people that play drum and bass, hard house, and techno.
Yeah,
like the rebellion music.
The rebellion music is exactly. So I think a lot of the kids were exposed to it that way.
Yeah,
and also a lot of kids were exposed to stuff that was happening online and stuff, and DJs like Charlotte DeWitt and all of that, they started playing Revolution, Amelie Lenz, all those kind of guys, as well as your Kikis and your Trims and stuff like that. But they're also playing some of the harder stuff that I did as well.
I think it's Do you remember the first out of that whole bunch that started picking it up again? Because I guess it's like an oil stain, that it's that it starts like one of these artists starts playing it, and then the other one's like, "Hey, what's this one?"
Yeah, I think I first heard maybe Amelie Lenz play Revolution.
Yeah.
I think that was the first one I remember going, oh, okay, that's someone's dropped that.
You're like, who's that? Instagram.
Yeah, there was a time where people in genres would play an out of the box set, an out of the box track.
Yeah.
So they'd be, playing their normal stuff, and then they'd just play something from a completely different genre, and everyone would go, oh my God, wow. Like that, But what happened is they started to pick my tracks as their out of the box track.
Yeah. Because you have such an extensive back catalogue anyway. And
yeah, I mean, I can pretend I had something to do with it, but I didn't have anything to do with it. They just started playing it, yeah.
I think it's fascinating. And out of all of this, Reinier Zonneveld came in and was like, hey, can you produce something for my label?
He remixed Revolution was re-released on Alan Fitzpatrick's label, We Are The Brave.
Yeah.
And they got the who's who of everyone to do loads of remixes and stuff like that.
Because everybody was playing the original. They were like, hey, I can make an edit of it. Yeah. Or they already made an edit of it. Yeah.
And he did one of the remixes, and that's how we got in contact.
Yeah. Tell us, how did it come about? Because you released an EP on, or you released some singles on Reinier's label.
Yeah, I did. I ended up doing a collab with him, and then I had like a 4-track EP, I think it was. Yeah. A 4-track EP. We got speaking because he did, he did a great job remixing Revolution, did a really good job.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of my favourite remixes that's ever been done of it. You brought it right up to date, understood to keep the key change in and stuff like that, rather than just
keeping it flat
with a techno beat behind it. Did a really good job. And then we began speaking through that, and then I just sent him some music for Filth on Acid, and then there was one particular record that we thought might work.
Suis-moi.
Yeah, so suis-moi.
Suis-moi.
Follow me in French.
Yeah.
And that's what the vocal says. So
follow me,
yeah. So we did that together, and yeah.
And then the next step is a release on Armada.
And next step was, I was speaking to James, who's one of the A&R guys here, release on Armada, and I was also hearing stuff that I was just I've always been a fan of Armada. It's saying to you before, although you might be known from a different genre, Armada's made some really good, tougher records, right?
Yeah.
It's got some great, and it's always a sign of quality.
Yeah.
So it's not like I hadn't played stuff from Armada in the first place. And then I was speaking to James, who's one of the A&Rs, but I also got thinking about why I made Revolution, which was to be played in a harder
club. Be a little
bit
different, yeah.
And be played by the trance DJs at the time as well, and the other DJs. And I thought, well, why don't I just take that concept on again, something that I can play, something that's up to date, but also hopefully something that other DJs can play from either techno and trance, just a good harder track.
Yeah.
Without being too specific about what genre it's from.
I think it worked out very nicely.
Yeah, that was XTC Nation. And then the latest release, You Are The Master, is like a continuation of that sound. I feel like I've got a little...
That's even more trancey, I think.
Do you think it's more trancey?
Yeah, I think it's because of the bass line.
Okay.
And the nicest thing about it is just a total off thing. The nicest thing about that record is the fake drop.
Right.
Yeah, because people think this drop is coming, but then you come back with another asset.
Yeah, that's
like if you play it on a dance floor, you're like...
That's the old school rave thing.
Yeah.
Do you know when they used to have a build and then break to a riff? That's that vibe. Short, snappy build and then to a riff and
then a drop.
And then a drop. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you, if you look back at the career that you've had, because you've seen it all, and suddenly you have like a whole generation like Reinier Zonneveld coming into you, approaching you to work together. How do you look at that? It's hard to explain. What do you think of that? Because you see a new artist coming in, trying to borrow a little bit of your style, your legacy, I guess.
I think it's absolutely amazing that people just keep flying the flag for harder music, and harder music will never disappear because there's always going to be
rebellions,
the rebellions and all of that. And also, you have that 20, it's like a 20-year cycle that tends to happen. I think people never want to be like their mums and dads or their older brothers.
Very true. Yeah.
Right. So the last generation were probably into the house and the tech house, and the new generation are like, Nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like my mum or dad into tech.
No champagne house. We just want.
We just want to.
We want to dance in dungeons.
We want to dance. Yeah, dance in dungeons.
Dance in dungeons.
Warehouses again, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And it's also harder music. Also can be a real leader into electronic music.
Oh, 100%.
You can start your journey there and discover all this other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the hardest styles of dance are so massive right now. You can even see it in the trance events like Dream State, for example. There used to be like maybe an uplifting stage or something like that. But I was in Dream State, Australia 2 weeks ago, and they had like a full-on stage with hard dance, like Dream, for example.
Yeah.
Unbelievable how massive that is becoming.
It's huge.
People wearing black clothes, have the weird haircut. It's a whole new generation of fans. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's some of it's sample based as well. Like but that's
TikTok techno.
Yeah, TikTok techno. But then that can kind of lead people into discovering where the sample came from. Then they find that artist. Then they go, oh, actually, you know what? That's kind of good. It's the reintroduction of stuff.
I think it's such a fascinating scene because there's no traditions in there for them because they see a release, they put it on SoundCloud or on Instagram, and it's out.
Yeah,
they don't really care about if it's on Spotify or Beatport, whatever.
That's
a release is just, I'll put it on SoundCloud.
They don't care about Beatport. Bandcamp, they stick it on Bandcamp, sell it on Bandcamp, and download it off SoundCloud.
Clear samples? No, I don't care. Just put it on. If someone wants to get it offline, just take it offline. Yeah. I love it. There's no rules. Well, there are rules, but they don't stick to it.
But but it's it's part of the rebellion, I guess. Isn't it?
So 20 years from now, Revolution is becoming a massive hit again.
Yeah, we can hope.
In the meantime, a lot of people are still playing it, obviously. Out of all these years that you've been DJing and touring, I would love to have like at least one cool, juicy story that you haven't shared with anyone yet. So maybe the weirdest thing that ever happened on a dance floor in these ravey times.
Not on a dance floor, but I did have a hand grenade thrown over a fence.
Whoa. Okay, you win the weirdest story ever. you won it.
So I went and played in South Africa back in the day in Joburg, and I was picked up by the promoter in a red Corvette, and under his front seat he had a machine gun.
Whoa!
And I was thinking,
this is interesting.
This is interesting. And he didn't stop at any red lights, and he was like, "Don't worry, I pay all the police. I don't have to stop. They know that's why I drive the road Corvette, so everyone knows who I am, so they don't stop me."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, right." And then
we went a big bullseye running around.
Yeah. And then we took us around different places, and then while we were there, they did a thing called a braai, which is a barbecue in South Africa.
Yeah, braai.
Yeah, braai. Yeah, braai. Sorry, yeah. And a rival promoter threw a hand grenade over the thing and took out half a wall.
All right, that's very rock star to do.
Yeah, so that was kind of back in those days.
Was that before you played or after you played?
That was before. Before I played. Yeah. And actually, the first time in South Africa that the club was my very first international gig was in Cape Town, and it was like 2,000 people again in this warehouse. And I literally went to put my first record on, and armed police came through the door like this to raid the party.
Whoa!
Because some rival promoter had said there was something going on.
There's drugs there. Yeah.
Or no, not even drugs there, but I think they'd said there was a bomb or something.
Okay.
But they didn't know how to raid a club. So in most days today, they'll make everyone sit down so they can see what's happening across the dance floor.
Yeah.
They didn't. So let's just say I watched everyone drink all their drinks very quickly before they got them out of the club. And then they let them all back up. They didn't find anything in the club or anything, so they let them all back into the club.
Yeah.
And by this time, it had been a good hour. So by the time I put the first record on,
you were done.
Everyone was ready to go.
Yeah.
And the place just went absolutely mental. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've had a similar thing in Russia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing. The police raided the club. Everybody had to sit down. They were like putting like how do you say it? Flashlights in their eyes to see if they have used drugs. And at a certain point, everything was allowed to get open again, and the first record that you would play, everybody's like, yeah, let's go. So yeah, that's scary situations though.
Well, it does. I went back for years after that.
Yeah,
I'd get booked again, and I'd go back and do the same club,
same promoter,
2 weekends in a row,
same red Corvette,
2 weekends in a row.
Yeah,
because they'd sell it out, and you'd do the first weekend, and then you'd stay.
Wow.
You do a safari.
They'd stay for a week, and then they'd do the second one in the same club with the same DJs.
Nice.
And then because they sold enough tickets to do 2 nights in a row. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered writing a book or something like that? With all these kind of stories, but you must have heaps.
Yeah, there's some good stories between us all. Yeah, it's just how much of it you can put in a book. Some of it.
Yeah, just change some names here and there.
And places, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Otherwise, you would harm too many people.
A friend of mine, Rob Tezera, actually is another hard house DJ. He's just released a book.
Okay.
And that he's done the same thing.
A lot of divorces came afterwards.
He's pretty much responsible for the criminal justice bill that happened in the UK.
No way.
Yeah.
How?
But he did an illegal rave up in Leeds.
Yeah.
And the police turned up to shut the illegal rave down in this warehouse. And he made a joke on the microphone and said, if we don't want the party to to finish, we're going to have to fight the bastards.
Yeah.
And everyone did. 1,500 people, yeah. So it was on the news, it was on the front page of all the newspapers, and that's when they brought the criminal justice bill in.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And then he hung up the book on that, or?
Yeah, that's all in his book. Yeah.
Interesting. I have to read that.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Yeah. So now we have to jump into some questions because we've been talking for a long time already, but we have some really nice questions from people as well. Well, On the Bass submitted a lot of them actually. Let's pick a good one. Well, he just asked most memorable clubbing memory. Well, you just mentioned a few times.
Yeah,
few of them already. In your opinion, what is driving the renewed interest in pop air and the hard sound again?
It's got to be the
rebellions.
The new breed of people just discovering music, the fashion within 90s music that everyone's looking back to. I think there's a bit of a rebellion against the EDM clean, polished.
Yeah. And do you think everything's a cycle so that in a few years, those people are rebellious right now, they get, they're less rebellious, they go into the working force and start listening to house music?
Yeah, maybe they get older, they have kids, start listening to house music. But I don't know. It's the right time, isn't it? It's the right time for it. It just feels right. It just, the quality of the music's good again.
Yeah.
It works so well with the production, the modern production, and that harder sound. Yeah. Puts on a real show, doesn't it? It can look really good, and it doesn't have to be your modern production, as in big fireworks. It just can be some great lights and a laser in a dark space.
Yeah, very true.
With your friends.
But it's so interesting that you just said about people wanting to rebel from their parents. But I feel like. Actually, with this kind of music, I got it through my mom. Like my mom would,
she was already a rebellion.
Yeah, she would play like hard house. She would play trance music. She would play techno music. So that's how I got into it. And I think a lot of other kids now, they also get it through their parents, and they are just like, okay, I grew up on this music, so I want to hear it again, and they just want to introduce other people to it as well.
Yeah, no, it's one of those sorts of music that's just, I don't know, it's just carried over for some reason. But even the trance stuff from that period was the golden era of trance. It's great now, but how many amazing classic records were written in that same time period,
A lot of them.
It was a
lot
great
about Ferry
period
and
for dance music.
Ferry and Armour. Ben Ireland wants to know, how has your production process changed with the new technology over time? How do you approach your latest productions?
I usually start with drums and bass first.
It's still hardware, or
I use a little bit of hardware and software. So hardware-wise, I've still got the old No Jason Supernova, the Juno, the Virus C, which is where the Revolution sound came from. That Virus C.
Yeah. Great synth.
Yeah, great synth. Better than the is it the TR?
Yeah. TI.
TI. That's a bit awkward to use, isn't it? The the Juno, few little outboard 303, few out
just to get things going. And
it can be a different vibe, doesn't it? And then just a lot of stuff that's in the box, you know.
Yeah, I guess most of the people do that.
UADs, and all that kind of stuff.
Amazing. Gotham Tagore wants to know, what is the state of trance for you, and what do you think about the trance fans?
I kind of look at us all in the same pot, really, because especially in the UK, it's not very, like when I first started playing hard house, you'd be on the same. It wouldn't be so segregated.
Yeah,
you'd be the hard house DJ on a lineup.
Yeah, I think
rather than
I love that.
There'd be a trance DJ, there'd be there, and you'd be part of that lineup. And
I think every single festival in that area had a multi-genre lineup.
Yeah,
because and at a certain point, I don't know why it became such specialized or
it kind of
elitist.
Split off, and
because I remember going to Danceville where you would play as well with the HQ stage, which was absolutely massive. Listen to Tom Harding, and then afterwards was Carl Cox, and after that was Ferry Corsten. Or Chester would come up, and then the Rogue or House DJ would come in. I love that.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Diversity was amazing
as well, though. If it was programmed correctly, you'd have a proper club. You know, as a clubber, it would be a real progression, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and you wouldn't hear the same track 10 times. You wouldn't hear Revolution 10 times.
In the UK, people that are into hard house are into trance as well.
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, I just like trance, I just like hard house.
But it has been like that for like 10 years, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, trance and hard house are quite linked in the UK, because even you have the hard trance stuff, which is a bit different from what you call hard trance in maybe in Holland. It was basically like hard house, but more musical hard house. Yeah,
that's true. All right, well, I guess we are way over time already, but thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your answers. It was fantastic talking to you, Ben. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on the release of Who's the Master?
Yeah.
You are the master. You are the master, exactly. All right, that's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, please like them here below. And I'll see you next time for a new one. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. Check all previous episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast portal.